Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Sufi Nikah space. I am Samira Sultan. I am a co-founder of Sufi Nikah. And today we are starting a beautiful series on womanhood. This is the first episode of the series. It is called Women as Center of Mercy. Today I'm delighted and honored to have Ustadha Iffet Rafeeq from UK, who is my mentor. She is absolutely my mentor, and she is an alima, a student of Deen, and she has been serving the community for over a decade. And she and her husband, Ustad Hamad, who is an imam, they started a beautiful online institution called the Blue Lantern Institute, and which I am a part of as well. And they offer amazing, amazing courses, which you guys should definitely check out. And I will definitely put the link down in the description, inshallah. Ustadha Iffet specializes in sacred sciences, and she's a dedicated teacher who is so passionate about teaching, and she specializes in marital well-being and the womb sciences. Inshallah, Bismillah. Welcome, Ustadha Iffet. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited to be doing this with you. I think I've been around for the ideas and the conception of Sufi Nikah, and to now reach this stage where you guys have your own podcast makes me so happy. And so I'm just really excited that I get an invitation on you guys channel. So thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Really means a lot. You know, Ustadha, in Islam, the family is built on mercy, right? And very often Allah places special mercy in the heart of women. And as daughters, wives, mothers, and sisters. Through them, the families stay connected, the homes become a place of sakina, right? When mercy leaves the home becomes just a building. It's just a structure, nothing else. And mercy is what makes it a family, right? And today we're celebrating womanhood. Today we're going to talk about womanhood. We're going to unpack a lot of things, inshallah. Could you please break down and briefly explain for us the 4 phases of a woman's journey?
Yeah, yes, I can. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and the idea of women being the container of mercy, the kind of energetic space of mercy within a wider home. And then actually we see this in a wider society as well, when women are part of an organization, a project, a masjid, any kind of movement where these women are sincere and they seek Allah's pleasure. So much barakah, so much mercy, so much goodness can come from that. And so I love that you've started this conversation with acknowledging that a house without women, a house without wombs, a house without a spiritual seeker in a female from a female perspective is a house without mercy, because they bring in this extra favors from Allah, especially women who are aligned and seeking Allah's pleasure. And so thank you for that wonderful introduction. And so from that, yes, the 4 phases of a woman's cycle. So I've got my notes here. You're going to see me down on my notes. I've got it highlighted and everything. And I was making these notes this morning, and I was just saying to Samira that I really enjoy this topic. No matter how many times I've covered it, I really enjoy talking about the phases of womanhood, and often reflecting on where I'm at and what I've learned and what I have yet to learn, and where the mistakes were made and what is there to improve. And I think being able to have this conversation openly and having it in the public sphere, I think it definitely helps other women hear about it and resonate with it. Because when I was going through the first phase, or even the beginning of the second phase, I don't think I had people around me speaking about this. So today, inshallah, we'll talk about the 4 phases of a woman's spiritual life journey. So often you'll see in non-Muslim spaces, Samira, that they talk about these four phases, but they have different names for them. Um, and I have tweaked the names and adjusted them according to the spiritual woman's journey. And I've actually changed some of the definitions based on the 10 years of observing, actually, it's been over a decade now of observing women, working with women, learning from their stories. I've understood that the pattern exists, but for the seeker of Allah and the woman who's seeking Allah in her life's journey, the patterns are the same, but there are certain nuances that are different. And so I've taken that model and then I've adjusted it and tweaked it a little bit. So the four phases of a woman's spiritual journey, a spiritual life, is maiden, mother, and this is where I've changed the two names. The third and the fourth phase is wise woman and sage. And essentially what we have here are archetypal phases of life. Like, so these are the when we're at the best form, when that phase of life is aligned in the way that it should be, this is what we are experiencing. So in the maiden stage, I've written down that, actually, I've also written down that these stages of life aren't rigid. And so it's not so much about when you're age 7 to 21, this is where you're at, and 21 to 41, it's not about age per se. It's actually more of like the evolving patterns that exist, evolving patterns of identity, of perspective, and of purpose, evolving patterns of the spiritual journey that a woman will go on, and they kind of follow the same pattern from the beginning to the end of a woman's life. And so we have the maiden, and the maiden represents the beginnings and this young phase, the young, fresh, new woman learning to become a woman. This is when you start your period all the way up until the second phase comes. This is that time where you're curious and you're excited about life and you're learning about yourself and you're bonding more with the idea of the discovering and adventure. And even the most introverted woman in this space is still curious to learn more and curious to be in this world that is around her. And so there's the benefits of this is emotionally, there's a lot more excitement to life, there's a lot more curiosity to life. And also one of the difficult elements of the maiden phase is insecurities and worries and not being sure within yourself of who you are and what you want from your life. But this is the time when you're forming your own values, you're forming what works, you're testing the limits, you're learning, and you're drawn to the excitement of new things. Then when a maiden transitions to mother, this is the second phase of a woman's life. Now, this often people kind of straight away go, "Oh, that's not me. If I don't have children." This doesn't necessarily mean becoming a mother, but it is the creating phase. It's the service phase of life, and so either it marks it when you give birth to a child, or when you become of service to sometimes some women I know that have never given birth, but they went through the mother phase because they started taking care of their sick parents, or they started building a career or a project that they gave their all to. So there's this big project in your life, or there's a big moment in your life where you now start giving a lot more than you are learning about your identity and who you are. And so this phase is about nurturing and creating and sustaining. And so that could be raising a family, it could be building a career, it could be supporting others in like an overall a greater goal. So there's a greater goal in play here, and now you've dedicated yourself to that greater goal. And in this stage of life, there's a lot more focus on responsibility. So the maiden is excited and curious and learning about herself. This phase of life is about responsibility and care and consideration for others and consideration for people outside of ourselves. And so we're investing in other than ourself, i.e., like into a project or into children or into a home or into our parents. So there's this investment happening outside of ourselves. And so the shift happens from the maiden to the mother of who am I to what can I give? Or how can I be of service? Or what am I building? Like, for example, I'm in my mother phase right now, and I'm constantly thinking, what am I building when I'm choosing to homeschool my children? What am I building when I'm choosing to be a screen-free family? I'm choosing to be a less processed, no sugar, no junk food kind of family. What are we working towards, and what are we building towards? And so, being in this phase myself, I can say this is a deeply fulfilling phase, but it's tiring. Hey, Samira, you know about this, right? It's very demanding. It asks a lot from us to be in this phase of giving and for the sake of a long-term goal. The third stage comes now when we become we go through the perimenopause, and then we hit menopause, and then the day after, when menopause is completed, we become the postmenopausal woman. And this woman in the other templates actually is portrayed as quite a self-indulgent woman. But what I have seen in my observations of spiritual women on this journey is they now step up and become the wise woman. And what I really love about the wise woman phase, and I'm really excited to get to that phase, Samira, is that everything before that was practice on what it means to be a woman. And when you hit menopause, once you've graduated from menopause, this is you now graduating as a woman. Now you've reached womanhood. Everything before that is practice, trial, testing, figuring things out, trying to find a balance between dunya and Allah and what you seek and what others need from you. And there's this whole beautiful spiritual dance taking place internally in the woman up until she reaches menopause. Once she's reached this, she's become the wise woman. She's become the woman that knows how to balance between Allah and the people who need her here in the dunya. And so the wise woman, she's got this experience, like lots of years of experience, and then she can turn it into insight. And this is the time where she has more discernment. There is more self-awareness and awareness of the reality of the dunya, right? And you'll notice one of the key things that I think I notice and I'm really excited about to experience when I step into this stage is there's a lack of filter in the wise woman. The wise woman will not filter down anything for dunya's sake. For Allah's sake, she will choose her words wisely, but for the dunya's sake, she doesn't filter, and her marking distinction is the truth telling, the ability to tell the truth for herself. No, actually, I don't want to do this. Yes, actually, you should be doing this. These kind of very clear statements come from the postmenopausal woman because she's been through it. She's had her highs and lows, and now she's moving into this really powerful stage of like the filter comes off, no more people pleasing. Actually, I only want Allah. Actually, what am I going to do now in this phase of my life where I'm seeking out and finding a way to please Allah? And so you become more aware of yourself. And so you see where the maiden was discovering herself. The mother, she almost lets go of herself, right? When you're building a career or whether you're raising children, you almost lose yourself in the process of that, right? And so then what happens is when you reach wise woman stage, it's a coming back home to the self. And so you've kind of gone through this whole journey, and then you come back and now you know who you are. The postmenopausal woman knows. She's not confused about what's going on and who she is and what she wants to do. She knows. And so emotionally, there's a lot more clarity. There's a less need for external validation. You'll notice this in a lot of postmenopausal women. There's a more trusting of their own judgment as opposed to like outside of themselves. And more trusting of Allah's plan, more trusting of their relationship with Allah. Like, I know my Lord. I know my Lord has got me. You know, you hear these phrases often from the wise woman who stepped into that stage. And then, and also a clear distinction is that a wise woman will not have her hand in every basket, or what is it, hand in every pot. She knows what to focus her attention on, what she's good at, what her strengths are. And so if it is like, I know that I want to be of service to the deen, this is where I'm going to be of service to the deen. Not in every other sphere. This is my strength. This is where I'm going to do it. I know that I prioritize this and this and this, and Allah is going to be pleased when I exert my efforts in these areas. So that's what I'm going to do. And then we move on to the last stage, which is another title that I chose for this final phase of the woman, is a word that is often used, but not so much used in Muslim spaces, which is the sage. Now, the sage is the transcended, the more like the transcended expression of the wise woman. So the wise woman is a step up from the whole being immersed in and losing yourself in the dunya for good, for, you know, our children, when we do it for our children, when we do it for deen, when we do it for a being of service, it's all good and it's all ibadah. However, when the wise woman kind of comes back to herself, the sage is the woman who now annihilates herself in complete submission to Allah. And so now she's at the end of her life. So we're talking the last few decades of life, where your bones are tired, your body is slowing down, you don't have the same strength and power that you did as a wise woman. And now your last few years, may we all experience them, are just about you and Allah. Everything else has passed. And what is really beautiful about the sage experience, and that's the final stage of Allah, being with Allah before you return back to Allah, is that this woman, she's seen it all. She's done it all. She's loved, she's lost, she's sacrificed, she's worked hard, she's indulged, she's had all the experiences, and now she knows that everything is an illusion except Allah. Everything is finite. Everything will end. Everything will finish. Nothing lasts except Allah. And so when we're in that final stage, you become that sage woman of now you have very little time for others around you, and you just want to be in ibadah. And that's what you see often. And these women, they're like, no, I don't want to come round to your house. No, I don't want to be partying. No, I don't want to do a birthday party at the age of 80 and 90. Actually, I just want to be with myself. And really what she's saying is, I want to be with Allah. I want to be with Allah. And you can see this, these are the sheikhas, these are the guides, these are the women that I've sat with in their 70s and their 80s and their 90s. There is so much wisdom to be held at their feet. And you can see that they have this sense of peace, a sense of a real acceptance of Allah's will and Allah's divine plan, and this detachment. It's almost like they're here, but they're not really here. There's this detachment from this world. And it's important to remember that all four of these phases, they're not necessarily linear, but these are the ideal four patterns of life that every woman can go through. Sometimes you'll see what happens, and often when I speak to women, I can see how the journey is going forward and then it's moving back on itself. Sometimes I meet a woman who got married very young, had lots of kids, was part of she missed out on her maiden phase. And then after her divorce, she goes back to her maiden phase and she needs to discover herself again. And then she becomes a wise woman. So sometimes there is an overlapping and a moving. But what is really, really beautiful is that each phase of a woman's life and a woman's spiritual journey is calling her to Allah. There's always a door open. Would you like to spend this phase with Allah? Would you like to spend this time, this current stage of life you're in, with Allah? Or would you like to get lost in the dunya? Each of these phases can give you the opportunity to lose yourself and be away from Allah, or use that exact same scenario and opportunity you're in to be with Allah.
Inshallah, that's I don't know, I don't have words. You actually took a lot of pressure off of me because, in the motherhood phase, it's you're giving and giving and giving. Sometimes I think we also don't see the vision, or we forget the
Yeah.
vision, or it's blinded for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
then we're just like, oh my God, I'm just so tired, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then you come back, right? You make dua
Yeah.
to Allah, you come
Yeah.
back to that same phase. And I love that you said mother is not just birthing and being a
Mm.
mother of children. It's mother means much more than just being a mother to a
That's right.
child. And that
That's
is amazing because, I mean, we don't think in that sense. We have limited our definition a lot, I feel, especially when it
right.
comes to women, and we don't
Yeah.
think
Definitely.
in that sense. And it is very beautiful that, you know, all four phases of a woman, and every woman has access to this, to the calling
That's
of
right.
Allah. Allah keeps calling. I do see, as you have mentioned, I do see that there are some women, even in the perimenopausal stage and when they have reached menopause, they have not yet reached that phase,
They
right?
haven't actualized it. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe they're not aware of it. I don't know what it is.
Mm,
But I
mm,
think now, at this point, it's very important to talk about niyyah.
mm.
So
Yeah.
in Islamic tradition, niyyah is very important. Intention is very important. So how does this redefine what success looks like across different stages of a Muslim woman's life?
Okay. And going back to that point, actually, as I answer this question, going back to the point that you mentioned of sometimes we see women in postmenopause who haven't actually actualized the wise woman era of their life. What happens? There's a couple of things to discuss here, but what happens when either we're not taught or we're not given the time to think and reflect on our lives in a way that is how is it going to feed the soul, and what is the greater plan for Allah for me, when we're not given that opportunity, given time or the space, or we're not in spaces where we get to learn this. Like, for example, whoever's listening to this right now has access to this information, and they can do what they want with it, but it will trigger a chain reaction of thoughts that will come from this, from days and weeks forward from hearing this podcast. And they'll keep being reminded of, oh, but this is the journey and this is the phase I'm in. And so being given these wisdoms, or having access to this the women's wisdom or female spiritual wisdom is definitely for us, it's like a lot easier to be able to navigate our lives. But there are, for example, an entire generation of women that were migrants and came to the UK, went to America, went to Canada, who were, because they were migrants and they had just come, they had just experienced, or their parents had experienced colonialism and being colonized in their era. um, they didn't have the opportunities, they didn't have the words, they didn't have the teachings, and they went into a space where they were in that fight or flight, they were in that survival mode, making sure we earn enough money to send money to people back home who also are literally surviving. And so these women actually had to abandon themselves. They had to abandon their spiritual journey or abandon their story for the greater good, the story of the immigrant story and the story of their families and the stories of the people they left back home. There was this almost a self-abandonment for the greater good. What happened in those times is that women worked extra hard. Women worked, sometimes they worked for the wrong reasons because they weren't given time to reflect on why they were making these sacrifices. And so when you see they get to menopause, they're quite upset.
Mhm.
They're quite angry. I thought I gave my everything for my children, and now my children have gone married and moved on. Or I gave everything to my husband, and now my husband has remarried, or he's done something else, or he's not the man that I actually wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Or I've done all of this and I've exerted my energy, and now I'm sick. I'm ill. I have health issues because I lived on high cortisol my whole life. And so often you see that these women feel quite they're grieving. Like a lot of women post-menopause, in the leading up to menopause, they're grieving the life that was chosen for them and they didn't get to choose for themselves. And so this is why it's important. I like to emphasize the idea of niyyah in every phase, and this is why I'm happy with this question of this. Let's actively choose that in this phase of life that we're in, what can we do in this life to transform it into ibadah? And so every phase of life can be immense amounts of ibadah. And from all of the different phases, I would say the mother, the wise woman, the sage, that's like, it's almost like they're higher in rank than the maiden. But then when you look at it, Allah does not distinguish any era more than the other era, because we know from our traditions, Allah mentioned in the Quran a story of the Ashabul Kahf, the story of the youth that were in their maiden and their young man era, who chose Allah, and then that choosing of Allah was so beloved that Allah preserved that story in the Quran for the whole of humanity to hear about and to learn and to study until Qiyamah, right? And so Allah does not distinguish each of the phases. And so He has placed for us examples from the maiden, examples from the mother, examples from the wise woman, examples from the sage as well. And so we have in our traditions, especially in Sufi traditions, all of our waliya Allah, the friends of Allah, the women, the spiritual foremothers that we have great examples in each four phases of these cycles, each four phases of the woman's life. Now, when we are in the maiden era, if we choose to spend this era, we make the niyyah, I'm in my maiden era, I'm actively seeking a spouse, I'm actively seeking knowledge and studying deen, I'm enhancing my own personal education, I'm actively learning about myself and what it means to be a woman, and actively seeking out, I have all this extra time to seek out people and gatherings and teachers and mentors, and this is my intention, I intend to spend my maiden era in ibadah. Then we know that there is an extra special reward for the maiden who chooses to do that, right? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised shade under His throne for the youth who spends the youngster who spends their youth in ibadah. And this is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the 7 people who will be protected under Allah's shade on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this is just Yawm al-Qiyamah. We haven't spoken about Jannah and the reward in Jannah. Just on Yawm al-Qiyamah, if you are in your maiden era, you're still looking for a spouse, you're still studying, you're still taking on teachers, you're still training yourself up, you're still learning about yourself. If you are in this era and you choose to make the niyyah that every day I go to university, every time I look for a spouse and it doesn't work out, make the intention that it's ibadah. Allah accept it from me as ibadah. Every single time that you go through learning and teaching and seeking knowledge and finding a guide and having these conversations and looking for good suhbah in this era, it is all worship for you. If you make that niyyah, you will be counted from amongst the people who Allah has given a special shade under their throne. In the motherhood era, now this one gets a little bit fuzzy, because we love our children so much. And so sometimes we do it because it's purely out of love. And then sometimes we have to remind ourselves, and it's often when we're tired, that we're actually not doing it because of how much we love them. We're doing it and it has to be moved. The goal has to move from because I love them to because I love Allah, because I want to please Allah. And so the niyyah behind the motherhood era is Allah accept me doing khidmah to another soul who is here to be in worship of Allah. I am in khidmah of them. You know, when you go to the gathering and you clean up the space and you cook the food and you line up the shoes and you clean the toilets and you're in khidmah of the sheikh and the teachers and the people and the attendees. Motherhood is that, but on a daily basis, every single time, and you're cleaning toilets and you're lining up shoes and you're feeding and you're cooking and you're cleaning and you're loving and you're giving. That is khidmah souls that have entered this world to do ibadah. And so it's a very sacred role. And so if we can shift the perspective of actually I love, because humans will be humans, and then we sometimes want something in return. We
Right.
want our children to be amicable. We want them to be pleasing. We want them to be agreeable, and to agree with us, and to live the way that we want them to live, and to do the things that we want them to do. Sometimes they're good for them, and sometimes they have their own path, right? And so not expecting anything in return from our children, who we literally lose bones and teeth over. I think it's really important to then move the goalpost, and the goalpost is Allah. And so I'm of service and khidmah to these souls that Allah has sent down in worship. And so the niyyah there, even if you're building a career, you're working on a project, or you're in service of your parents, you are not doing this so that you can repay your parents. In your motherhood era, if you don't have children but you're taking care of others, you're not doing it for the people. It must be for Allah, because the people will never be able to repay you. And so when we go to the wise woman phase, the niyyah in the wise woman phase, it must be, what do you choose to do with your newfound power? Because what happens is, first you've lost yourself in your khidmah, in your service, and then you go into the menopause stage, and you've now become this woman. What do you do with this newfound power that you have, this newfound filter that's been removed, this newfound coming back to your own identity, clarity, focus? What do you want to focus your attention on? And for different women, it's different things. Some step into the era of being a beautiful, wonderful grandmother, a grandmother in a way that she couldn't mother her own children. She now heals her children by being the grandmother that is of service and is of khidmah. Some women will use this time to set up projects and organizations, the kind of things that in their motherhood era they wanted to do, but they didn't get a chance to do. So now they're setting up CICs and non-profits, and they go into charity work, and they go into teaching, they go into different eras and different fields, because they want to give back to the community.
Mhm.
And so it's very important in this phase to remember that if we found this newfound power, and rest is of course very important. So if you feel like you've overgiven in a certain era, the next era, wait and rest and replenish your nutrients, replenish your soul, and then give back. Never give from depletion, because it won't last long, right? And so once you've rested, in the wise woman era, you really want to be focusing on, how do you now give your wealth of wisdom and experience that you've picked up and learned, how do you give this back to the next generations? And the sage era, the niyyah should be complete, entire submission to Allah. In the sage era, we are completely humbling ourselves before Allah. And age will do that to you. Old age does that to you. You don't feel powerful anymore. You don't feel strong anymore. You feel like you've given a lot, and now there's this complete humility in front of your Lord. And it's almost as if you know, and your Lord knows you, and you know your Lord. And there's this knowing between the sage and Allah. And it's this humble, I'm coming before you with slow body, with a tired body, and I'm missing you, Allah. I want to come home. And there's those few decades of worship are just about humility and submission. And so niyyah in every single one of these phases is so important, because like I mentioned, each phase can take you away from Allah, or pull you to Allah, and give you great rewards when you reach Allah.
Mashallah, mashallah. That's amazing. But then why do you think certain phases of womanhood get celebrated while others get ignored or even devalued?
Okay, so this one's a really, I'm very passionate about, very passionate about talking about this, because in the society today, we have the maiden is celebrated so much. The
Yeah.
youth, the appeal, the visual appeal of a maiden, the constant And you will see this in the Sufi nikah sphere, in the marriage sphere, this constant focus on the virgin, or the woman who has not been married before, the woman who doesn't have children, the woman who doesn't carry responsibilities and loads. And so the maiden is highly celebrated in society today, and the mother is celebrated in society today. The wise woman is devalued. I would say the wise woman is devalued, and the sage is forgotten, just completely forgotten from society. And one of the things that I'm most passionate about talking about is I 110% believe that the reason why the maiden and the mother is given importance is because capitalism can profit from her. Capitalism cannot profit from the wise woman because she's figured out what it means to be a woman. She's been through the backwards and forwards, and maybe I should fix my makeup, maybe I should fix my body, maybe I should do this, maybe I should buy this for my child, maybe and consumerism and all of the things that kind of come in between, everything in between capitalism, consumerism, and colonialism, everything in between that, you can take from the maiden and you can take from the mother. But the wise woman, she's got more discernment. She's got more clarity. She knows what she is and who she is and what she needs and what she doesn't need. And so you cannot profit from the wise woman. And even if you could profit a little bit, this is why the sage is completely ignored in society, because you cannot make money. You cannot capitalize the old submitted woman, the one who has submitted to her Lord entirely. She doesn't even want her family around. She just wants Allah, you know? And so for capitalism to be able to make money, to keep the machine working, the maiden and the mother has become highly profitable. The maiden used to be profitable and motherhood wasn't. Now they've also incorporated motherhood in, and as you can see in influencers on Instagram, the sheer amount of consumerism that exists, the sheer amount of, I'm a mother and now I'm buying this and this and this, and I'm a mother, I've just found out I'm pregnant with my third child, and I'm also, these are the things that I'm buying, and these are the things, and this is the list, and it's almost crazy. And when I speak to people, and Samira, you know this, I've mentioned this on the Blue Lantern Institute a lot. When I speak to people about how I'm raising my children, how I don't buy clothes, I just don't buy clothes. And I often, the conversation starts because people will say having children is quite expensive. And I'm like, there's no expense. Like, it's not expensive at all to have children. If anything, they bring in more rizq and they bring in more wealth. What is expensive is your need to keep up. What is expensive is your desire to indulge in things. Children do not care what they're wearing. Children do not care what they're playing with. Children have no idea, especially young children. And so when I speak to children, I say, I don't buy clothes for my children. I have hand-me-downs. I ask around, does anybody have clothes from this age to this age, this age to this age? Allah always sends clothes. There is Allah, He is the provider. There is always clothes on my children's back that I have not bought. And that's been in Scotland when we were living in Scotland, all the way when we were living in Turkey, when we were living in Malaysia, when we were living in South Africa. Now we're back in England. Allah has been providing. Clothes have been on my children's bodies since the travel, since the move. And so it's not one place, it's not one people. It is your trust, complete trust, and then asking and making a discerned decision. This is how I choose to live. We also don't buy toys for our children unless they are things that are open play, and that can be used multiple times, like magnets and Legos. That's it. Nothing else. Everything else is twigs, stones. We're making things. We're building things ourselves. And so the consumerism that exists around the motherhood era, what the mother should do for her own self, her own body, what she should be wearing, what her children should be wearing, what should be in the home at the time, even the best of it is still consumerism, right? And so there's profit to be made. There's profit to be made on the beautiful, young, sexy woman, and there's profit to be made on the mother who just genuinely wants good for her children and wants to give them the best in life. And so there's a lot of that. And that's why I believe that the wise woman and the wise woman's more devalued, because she's able to say no. She said, actually, I don't want that, and I don't need that, and I don't need to bring this excess into my home, not just from consumerism perspective, but also mental noise and people and kind of environments that we create for ourselves. This also consumerism, right? It's also what we are consuming. And so the wise woman says, no, I think I'm okay. I think I don't need to please you or please my, or indulge in this or indulge in that. And so she becomes devalued. She's kind of off the market a little bit. And then the sage is completely ignored, which I think for me as personally, I'm on a like a quest
Mhm.
to bring that back into motherhood, especially is de-influencing motherhood,
Mm.
and kind of detaching it from capitalism and consumerism.
You know, it's amazing because we actually don't even realize it. As you mentioned, we don't realize it. We're like, yeah, well, of course we're gonna buy clothes. They're just clothes. I mean, what else my child is gonna
Yeah,
wear, you know?
yeah,
Then
yeah,
when we
that's
do like
right.
hand-me-downs, right? Especially if it's like siblings hand-me-down, it's still okay. But then when you
Mm,
go
mm,
to a thrift store or when you go ask hand-me-downs from someone else, you're like, what? I can't, afford clothes for my children. And that's subhanallah, it's so crazy how our mindset has been changed.
that's right.
That it's so automatic that we think in that sense, you know?
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it's not that we don't have money.
right.
It's that we
Yeah,
actively choose not to spend
exactly.
money in that era. And that's what the people who I'm around, the people in my spaces, they have enough money to take their children across the world to go and sit in the gatherings of Allah, to be with, to do courses, to study, to train, to be with good people. We have the resources are there, but it's about understanding where are we prioritizing. Because not a day in my son's life, both of my sons, not a day in my son's life that he ever said, what am I wearing?
Mm.
As in, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Or where did this come from? Did it come from a shop or did it come from a cousin or somebody we know? You know, so they don't care. They're unaware. And we place that in them, this care.
Mhm.
We place that dunya, we care inside of them.
Subhanallah. And it's also the culture that plays a role, right? Like
Yeah.
the culture that we're part of, there's that constant, and you just kind of slip into it when you hear the culture
So
constantly.
subtle.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so subtle. And then, of course, the influencers and the media and everything, our brain doesn't process as much as we see. Like it takes time to process, but when it does, I think it's like going inside of us and it comes out when things like this
When we're
happen, like when
shopping,
we
yeah.
have
Yeah.
kids or when we are shopping
Mm,
or anything like that,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
And thanks
Yeah.
to you, though, I have to mention this, thanks to you that I have um, started thinking about like myself and parenting more consciously. Because I do
Oh,
remember, yes, I'm not even like trying to flatter you here. It is the truth. Because I remember I did the course with you, which was the Riyadat Sibian, the upbringing, right, of children. I honestly I had that book before. I was reading it, but it didn't provide me much of an insight as opposed to when I was doing it with you. So,
Alhamdulillah.
and
Alhamdulillah.
that gave me a lot of insight as to you have to be conscious. And it's not just mothering the child, it's reflecting who you are. That's the first thing in motherhood.
Mm,
So, a lot
mm.
of things I'm
Yeah.
more conscious of myself and I'm more conscious of, okay, where's this going? Like, where's that going? Why am I like this? And I really feel that that's like the first step towards
Yeah.
becoming that woman, that phase where I can
That's right.
consciously say, this is what I want, this is not what I want, because
Mm.
this is more pleasing to Allah and this is not. The center is Allah, has to be Allah. It is so crazy because we can't talk about the women and not talk about the womb, right?
Mm. Mm.
We have
That's
to.
right.
But then the thing is, even the womb, right? Sometimes, like if I were to talk about the womb briefly and say, oh, womb is a part of woman's body. She gives birth, there's a pregnancy phase, there's a delivery phase, and that's it, right?
Mm.
We're not taught anything more than that in that sense. And I think that really has a lot to do with the disconnect that we feel in our phases, as you have mentioned, and also the devalue that comes from ignoring our womb. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with that. When we ignore our womb, we lose a sense of autonomy over our own selves. We kind of detach from ourselves, which I was actually speaking about at a gathering recently.
Mhm.
Is that first there was a detachment from the woman starts becoming detached from her wider society and her village and her community, and then she becomes detached from her, her immediate, her husband and her children, and then she becomes detached from her own body. And so there's this like a disassociation, a fragmented human. And we see this with a lot of women in the West today, where the pressures exist on Muslim women, just from the young age, like the consciousness is being absorbed and taking in so much that we are slowly becoming colonized within our own in our own bodies, and we're becoming separated and fragmented. And I was saying in the gathering that how did they convince us that there was something wrong with our cheekbones, that we have to now inject our cheekbones? How did we get to this stage that our bodies don't even belong to us anymore? Somebody has convinced us we got to put Botox in it. And so what you've touched on is really important. Coming back to the womb, coming back to the center of every woman is, for me, it is. I think it's going to be my life's work. I think it's going to be everything that I focus and navigate every conversation back to, because I believe that the womb Allah had gifted to a woman so that she could keep coming back to herself because of her cycles, the way the cycles are designed, the way the monthly hormonal cycle is Allah's actually giving us a monthly return back to ourselves. And almost as if like you can do whatever you want in the world, but then you must remember that there is you and there is your body and there is the soul, and all of this needs to be honored. And the womb is the powerhouse of the woman. It is the center. It's the energetic center. It's the hormonal center. If anything, it's even a spiritual center. And I'm going to start off by saying this, and I know, Samira, you know that I say this often, is that the womb must be separated in Muslim spaces, especially. The womb needs to be separated from the idea of motherhood, because often women connect to their womb only when they want something from it. So either they want a baby from it, or they don't want a baby from it, or they're confused at what's going on internally. There's so much chaos, and then they want some balance and peace from it. The womb does not exist just to give birth. The womb is a part of the entire spiritual female experience. It is the foundation upon which we lay our salah, the foundation upon how we receive our Quran, the foundation upon when we do dhikr, how it is received in our body. The womb is the carrier, the womb is the container. And so sometimes a lot of Muslim women in our spaces think, okay, the womb is something to do with motherhood. And that is because that was the only way we were taught about the womb, was Jannah lies under the mother's feet. All the connections and any association we have to the womb is about childbirth or birth and motherhood. My argument is that the womb, the motherhood is actually like this much of what the whole entire universe of what the womb can do for you. Giving birth is one portion. It's a small portion. Actually, the womb is with you when you are born, and it is with you until you die, inshallah. And it is your friend, and it is your door. You see that door that I was talking about, the door that's open in maiden, motherhood, wise woman, and the sage. The womb is your door. And the womb space that's the door that you open, and that's the door that you walk through with Allah. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it sounds very philosophical. It sounds very spiritual. What does that mean on a practical level? So the womb is the center, the powerhouse for the hormones. The hormones navigate our daily experience. If on a daily basis the hormones are wreaking havoc and they're causing chaos, you will not have a clear canvas, a clean canvas to do your spiritual work on. If
Right.
I'm having cortisol spikes and blood sugar spikes and low blood pressure and kidney issues and I'm in adrenal overflow, I'm working on complete adrenaline now and I haven't taken my care of my body, haven't rested. Where am I going to get time when I sit down to do dhikr or when I sit and pray my salah? How will I feel the words of the salah? How will I sit and receive Allah's response for me? If there is so much noise inside my body, if there is so much chaos inside my body. And so handling and taking care of the hormones, I often teach this to my women, is taking care of your hormones is an ibadah. Taking care of prioritizing your hormonal health is ibadah. It is worship because you're clearing out the canvas. You're cleaning the inner space to which then the dhikr and the ibadah and the worship to Allah sits. And so you got to make space for it, right? And why? And often women will say, but the spiritual women before never spoke about the womb. They never spoke about the hormones. And actually they did. They did speak about the womb and they spoke about the internal world. They just didn't have the same language as us, but they spoke about the internal world. However, the world up until 100 years ago, there was a lot more focus on fitra. There was a lot more focus and being surrounded by nature, unless you were like in an extreme scenario, an extreme situation. And so women were more in line back then. People did spend more time outside. Processed food did not exist up until like, let's say 100 years ago. And so we are now in an era where we do have to do extra work in order to bring in Allah's worship and ibadah. And for it to impact us. And so when we want to build a relationship with Allah, we must acknowledge that the womb is a carrier. The womb is a carrier for your spiritual experience. The womb is a carrier for your connection to Allah, because we know from the hadith, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned multiple times the womb has a sacred connection with Allah, right? And so we must, if we can focus on and zone in and zoom into the womb and acknowledge that the womb needs its focus and attention first, and then I can propel that in my spiritual journey, we're going to get a lot further than trying to work against the hormones inside the body. Now, the womb being a center place, one of the things that, alhamdulillah, now this knowledge exists, it's out there, it's a lot more prevalent. When I first started about 8-9 years ago, when I started teaching this, when I said the womb could hold trauma, people didn't understand what that meant. When I said the womb holds your unprocessed stress, or the womb can hold unprocessed experiences, and it will then impact and manifest in physical health issues like PCOS or fibroids or PMS or endometriosis. That is a physical response to the spiritual weight that the womb is carrying when it comes to like the lifestyle, but also the emotional state of the woman. And now we have a lot more evidence of how endometriosis, there's been a lot of research and work done and papers published on how endometriosis is connected to childhood trauma. And there is a lot more focus on how emotional stability impacts womb health, right? And fertility and all of that. And so so now we're starting to see the kind of scientific approach to emotional health of the womb. But this, I think, is a truth that women knew. Our spiritual foremothers knew this for years, for centuries. It's been something that has been highlighted when you are in female-only circles of spiritual spaces, right?
Yeah.
And so making sure that the womb is healing from its unprocessed trauma, unprocessed issues, any kind of grief that we're carrying, if we can work towards bringing peace and balance to the womb, then you will feel that in the rest of your body. I know this as somebody who has recovered from PCOS, somebody who worked very hard on my journey to bring hormonal balance to my body, and how that propelled my spiritual journey, and where I saw the without even trying, there was results in my spiritual in my spiritual life, whilst I was just working on the hormonal balance. And this is why I'm so passionate about it. And so how do we connect? How do we build a connection with our womb? I'm just gonna kind of end this area here for you, Samira. Is that how do we build this connection? The first thing is acknowledging. Acknowledging the womb, just acknowledging that there is a very powerful, extra special organ. All the organs are incredible, but the womb is metaphysical. It exists as a physical organ, but there is a spiritual element to it where a ruh can travel. Whether it does or not ever in your lifetime is not the point. The point is that it can. And the point that Allah had placed this inside of your body, this metaphysical and physical womb that exists, that can carry a soul from another realm into this realm, is an extremely powerful like experience. And so that experience exists within you, and that's inside of you. And Allah chose you. You could have been a man, but Allah chose you to be a woman to carry the womb.
Yes.
What does that say about you? Right? And so that acknowledgement of this exists, and then learning about the womb. Alhamdulillah, we are now in an era where womb knowledge is everywhere. Some of it is a bit airy-fairy. Some of it is a little bit wishy-washy. That's not from our traditions, and we don't take from that.
Yep.
But a lot of it is useful information that we can learn how to eat, to help our PMS, to help benefit our cycles, what herbs we can use to steam with, what herbs we can use to eat, what herbs we can use to drink, what oils we can use for our bodies. There is so much information out there on how we can bring ease to our wombs and our bodies, and our menstrual cycle experience, our perimenopause experience, our womanhood experience overall. Alhamdulillah, it's out there, right? And so acknowledging the existence of the womb and then learning from it and learning about it is, I think, the first and foremost thing. The second thing I always say to everyone, the highest form of self-care that you can do, more than any other more than any baths, steaming sessions, more than any eating the right food, eating organic, more than anything else, the highest form of self-care is tracking your cycle and knowing what your blood looks like. What does your blood tell you? It's a report card at the end of every day, at the end of every month, and it's telling you what is going on inside of your body, the color of your blood, the texture of your blood, the way it's coming out, what time, how long did it take to come out. All of these are factors and messengers to tell you this is what's going on inside your body. So knowing your own period, tracking your own cycle, is a huge form of saying to the womb, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you. Hey, and so this is a huge acknowledgement for the womb. And then, as you know, Samira, I talk about this every time, protein breakfast. The quickest, easiest way of taking care of your womb every single morning is to have a protein savory breakfast. Because what you do with that protein savory breakfast is you manage your blood sugar levels and your cortisol levels. And so when the cortisol levels and blood sugar levels are not going high, low all day, the womb is happy. And then you have a better PMS experience, you have a better luteal phase, a better ovulation phase, a better period, and then better perimenopause and better menopause experience. And so having protein, good quality, healthy fats and protein and less carbs in your breakfast, that is the best phase. And I'm going to finish off by saying sitting with conscious women, sitting amongst spiritual women, being around women who are embodied, being around women who are womb conscious, and even if they're not womb conscious per se, they're just conscious of Allah. And inshallah, that is a good way of building a connection with the womb.
MashaAllah. You know, this reminded me of two things. One, Ustadha Chantal Blake, she came here to Toronto, and I visited her Yeah, I visited her program, her event, and that first time I actually heard her say that the womb, how it is actually, as opposed to the pictures, it's actually
Yes,
in sajda. And that
yes,
really did something to me, that something inside of us is constantly in sajda. What does
yes.
that tell about women? Subhanallah, like that.
Just for everyone who's listening, should we explain that?
Yes, yes,
So the organ of the womb. I don't have okay, so let's say this is the womb. So it's like a pear-shaped womb. The image shows you like a straight, the uterus sits up like this, and then the ovaries are on the side. Actually, that's not the case. The womb tilts forward. It's almost like in ruku or in sajda. The womb is naturally, it's tilted forward. And it's almost like a humbling, a submission to Allah. Even the organ is submitting humbly to Allah. It's a really, really powerful. Once you look at the physiology and the biology of the womb, it's an incredible, incredible
it's
thing.
like it really changed something in me when I heard that. Subhanallah, and I started feeling so empowered. And the other thing that I really remembered was a very famous saying of Sheikh Nazim,
Hmm.
Qaddasallahu Sirru. He
Mm.
says that women um, don't need much training when it comes to when they need to become wali Allah.
Yep.
They so it's like it really, I had tears in my eyes when I read that, to be honest,
Mm.
because I'm like, all our lives in our cultures too, we can say that, oh, women, they're less than men, or we're
Mm.
here to serve the men, this, that. So they
Mm.
kind of make their own narrative, right? When I read that, I
Mm.
think I read this after I gave birth, and I was feeling
Mm.
really low. And Sheikh Nazim's quote comes in front of me, and I was like, Subhanallah, what does that
SubhanAllah.
mean? What does that mean, that a woman does not need, an intensive much training to become waliullah? Waliullah, like it becomes easy for her to be a wali
Mm.
than, let's say,
Mhm.
compared to a man, right? As
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's coming
SubhanAllah.
from a great wali himself.
Mm.
So,
Mm. And it's multiple scholars. It's not, this is not just a one man statement.
mhm,
Multiple scholars around the world for as long as I've been exposed to it, and previously we hear stories about a lot of ulama, a lot of shuyukh that say women have an easier path to Allah. They have an easy access. They have an open access to Allah, and some of them mention the womb. Some of them mention the women's service. Some of them have mentioned the softness of a woman's heart. Allah has made a woman's heart soft, and Allah loves soft hearts and not hard hearts, and
right.
hard hearts can create a barrier. And so this is like a known treasure amongst the people of Allah, where they mention that women have an easier, or not easier, but women have like a faster connection, an
Right.
open connection with Allah, where if they wanted, should they seek it,
Mhm.
they will be able to get there quicker.
It's so empowering. It's really empowering. And I really want all of the women who are listening, inshallah, and all of the men, who are listening, to really understand the status of a woman. That's the whole point of this
Yeah,
podcast. And
alhamdulillah.
inshallah, and we also want to tell men how to care for and honor the women and the wombs in their lives. Ustada, please take over.
Okay, so if you are a man and you have been listening up until this point, mashallah, very impressed. If you've managed to get this far, then I think you already know what you're doing, right? But I think I'll share just a few things from my own perspective of how what I've seen works amongst women, and all the women that I've worked with, and then how their men's and their husbands and their fathers and their brothers and their sons have responded to them.
Mhm.
Um, the very first thing to understand is that a woman's body, your body as a man, it works on the circadian rhythm. So your body refreshes itself every 24 hours. And so when you go to bed at night, your body will replenish its hormonal reset its hormonal status, and then you'll start the same thing again every day. Every single day of your life, you are on the same hormonal template. It is the circadian rhythm. It's important for every man to know that the woman is not on that same template as you. She has a circadian rhythm, but what navigates her lifestyle and her internal experience more is the infradian rhythm, which is a 28-day cycle, which is a 30-day cycle. And this is the cycle of menstruating, ovulating, luteal phase, and then back to menstruating, and so there's a whole internal journey happening inside of her body, which then dictates how she sees and experiences the world around her. When she's ovulating, how she sees and experiences the world around her is very different to a day or two before her period comes. How she experiences that very same reality around her is very different. How she perceives it is very different. This is not your fault. You are not at fault, but this is Allah's design. This is her journey with Allah. Allah has given her this beautiful hormonal cycle so that she can be of service and be in the dunya and be of khidmah to you, to your children, to the people around you. And then Allah also gives her hormones to help her step away and connect with Allah. What you can do in this phase is just understanding and recognizing that how you feel every single day is not her reality. She's not supposed to be the same as you, and she's not, and she definitely is not experiencing, even if you're living in the same house with the same children, same everything, she's not experiencing it the same as you, right? And so I think every man, what I've seen, that how men benefit from acknowledging the wombs in their lives, and how they acknowledge whether it's their daughter, their sister, or their wife, or their mother. When they acknowledge the wombs in their lives, they are the recipients of benefit. Whilst immediately it looks like they are giving more, they end up receiving more. I've heard this firsthand from the men who have shared this with me. I've heard this firsthand from the women who have then come back and told me, these are the changes we've made, this is how it's benefited us. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean by honoring or acknowledging the wombs, let's start off with the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that the ism of Allah, Rahman, Allah named the womb after his own name, Ar-Rahman. And whoever connects with Ar-Rahman, whoever connects with the Rahim, whoever connects with the womb, Allah connects with that person, him or her. Whoever disconnects from the womb, Allah disconnects from him or her. In the world today, with everything that's happening politically, as you guys know, there's a lot been happening politically about women and abuse of women. If we were to just acknowledge that when a man dishonors a womb in his life, or the woman in his life, he is the recipient of Allah's wrath. He is the recipient of Allah's anger. And so he then gets disconnected from Allah. I don't know a single man of Allah, a single a sheikh who is a wali, who is a friend of God. I don't know a single man who is an elevated man with Allah who abuses or mistreats the women in his life. Right? It's not possible. They don't come together. You can't do it, right? And so honoring the women in your life will then be your path to Allah. Now, I know there's a lot of conversation around honoring women, and I know there's a lot, especially on the internet, that exists about men not succumbing to all the needs of a woman. And I personally agree. I personally think that the kind of narrative that exists out there is it's a kind of feminismly tainted or worded in a way that benefits women more than men. I believe that men need to be allowed to be men. I believe that they need to be given the space to be men and the respect to be men. We shouldn't be shaping men according to our design as women and then saying, I don't respect him anymore because he's not actually a real man, right? And so I've seen this play many times over, and so I disagree with the kind of narrative that exists. What I constantly teach and I tell people about, and I see that what works is when the man becomes the masculine container for a woman to have freedom within her container, but he is the masculine energy and presence that is holding and keeping it together. But when the woman is given freedom within that, and there is a communication and a collaboration happening where you're talking to each other, you're learning from each other, and you're speaking to each other, but the container is held by the masculine energy. You can see that the woman will then thrive in that space. On top of that, the man is a recipient of that. It's almost like an investment return. When a man is able to give a woman a safe space to be free within that space, he then is benefited. Men and women, both couples have told me that they have benefited financially, physically. There is a lot more wealth and rizq in the family when the masculine and the feminine are in harmony. The children thrive a lot more when there is a certain system in place, and we don't know who's in charge and who's the leader and who's not the leader, and there's this push and pull happening. Children thrive most in that environment. We know that the mental health and spiritual health of men and the women are benefiting from the synergy between the masculine and the feminine. And so there is a lot of investment and benefit to be taken from allowing the man to be the container and allowing the woman to have free reign over her realm and what works for her while she's in a safe space and being held by the man.
Sure.
And so what I would say is that the more you allow your wife to rest, the more that you support her to in her spiritual journey, the more she does that, the more she will give back to you. There's never a woman, a wife, a daughter, a mother will never take from you, except that she will give you tenfold back in return once she's better, once she's rested, once she's healed. And so the more rest and support you give her, the more you will reap the benefits, not just in this world, but also in the akhirah as well.
MashaAllah. The point that you had mentioned here about masculine energy and feminine energy, the podcast that my husband did just before ours, Ustad Shahrikh Khan, he also talks about how a man needs to be a man when he has that right masculine energy. The feminine will step into her feminine very easily.
Yes,
and that
exactly. That's amazing.
It's amazing, and it's something that we need to really remind ourselves, because with all this narrative that's there about the macho man, the toxic man, or the toxic woman, it's not what Islam told us. It's not aligned with our values and our principles, right? When we are aligned, when the men are aligned with their with Islamic principles and values, and they allow us in the masculine energy, they are there in the perfect masculine energy, the feminine energy automatically comes out. It is when So he was kind of very harsh on the man, like a man needs to be a man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, mashallah. So you just when you said that, it really reminded me of what he said, and it is coming, from a man himself. So it is amazing.
And I think it's important to just remind everyone, because we hear these podcasts and we hear these, and it sounds really great when you hear it and you're like, right, okay, this is it. And then you listen to another podcast and you're like, right, this is it. And there's in the age of information, there's a lot of information out there. I think it's important to remind ourselves that just because a husband and wife have figured this dance of masculine and feminine energy out today does not mean that tomorrow it's going to be okay. Me and my husband are on this, we've been married for like 11 years or so, and we're on this journey of figuring out what this looks like in every scenario, and each scenario that Allah gives us is a new scenario, and now we're trying to figure out, okay, what does it look like in this? And so you will never have it figured out entirely. You'll never have figured it out to the T. It's not possible. We're human and we're going to go through these learning experiences. But the openness to want to keep that framework that Allah has designed, the openness of, let's keep going back to what we know, the masculine container, the feminine freedom space is the creator within that. And if we can keep coming back to that and reminding ourselves, then a couple, I think, will be very successful. It's when you meet people who seem to say, no, I figured it all out. I know it. I know it's gotta be like this every single time.
Yeah.
It's not. Life is not like that. And so as long as we can remind ourselves and keep coming back to the original framework, then we'll be okay.
Inshallah, inshallah. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the podcast, which I'm really sad about because I was really enjoying this conversation.
I was enjoying this conversation. Thank you.
But, mashallah. But Ustada, I would like for you to say the final takeaways for people to just kind of go back to remember for men and for women.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up, the woman is the woman is on a journey with Allah and she's connecting to Allah. Allah opens up many doors for you in your life through every different experience to be with Him and to be in friendship with Him, to be in worship to Him, to be submitted to Him in every stage of life. This current stage of life, there is a door open for us. And then the next stage of life, there will be a door open. There is also a way to get lost. And there is also a way to lose yourself and to lose the connection that we have. I've been lost many, many, many times. I think I'm one of the people who gets lost a lot, right? And so the idea is not to never get lost or to never sin or to never fall. But the idea is that every time we do, we keep using the means and the methods that Allah has given us to come back. And so Allah has given us the womb, Allah has given us the monthly cycle, Allah has given us a very soft and tender heart that is willing to receive the guidance that He will give us. Allah has given us salah, Allah has given us the Quran, Allah has given us companionship and sohbah and community and teachers. And so every time we fall or we slip or we lose ourselves, we come back. And we go to the teachers and we go to the gatherings and we go to these places. You are on a journey, whether you are in your maiden era, your mother era, your wise woman era, or the sage era, listening online. Whichever era you are in, may it be a blessed one and may it be of service to God. May it be in a way that Allah is pleased with you. And so for the men and the women, if we can renew reset our bodies and renew ourselves regularly and be with Allah, and if we can navigate the heart and the mind to be still enough to want to please Allah, so to be still enough to make that intention every morning, then all of the relationships and all of the things that is external to us will find its place. It will find its balance. And so a husband treating his wife right, a young maiden looking for the correct husband, a father trying to raise a daughter. Everything external to us is just a mirror to what's happening internally. And so if we can set the internal canvas straight, if we can reset it, clean it regularly, and then start fresh again, Allah will send His favor, open doors, remove obstacles, and He will bring barakah like we've never imagined, inshallah.
Ameen, ameen. Jazakallah khair so much for your time and your insight. It was amazing. We unpacked a lot. And it is something that is a topic on its own, I feel. Every phase itself is a topic on its own. Inshallah, we will sometime in the future come back and revisit this and unpack a lot more, because your wisdom is something that's very, very impactful, mashallah. And I know this and I speak from experience. So please do check out Ustada's online institution, the Blue Lantern. I will post the link in the video, inshallah. And I hope we all benefited from this beautiful podcast. Please do check out our other podcast and follow Sufi Nikah for more, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.